Hey guys, so this is just going to be a short video to show you a model on how we should be tracking our conflicts throughout the Outsiders. I know I mentioned it to you while you guys were in class in person, but just in case you forgot what to do or you're not really quite sure, I'm going to go ahead and show you the first chapter so you guys can really see what I'm talking about and we can track it from beginning to end of the Outsiders. So I was flipping through chapter 1 again, reminding myself exactly of what happened, and I want to show you guys two types of conflict that I found and show you exactly how we should be writing them down when we are at home reading. So on page 3, it says, "We're poorer than the Socias and the middle class. I reckon we're wilder too, not like the Socias, who jump greasers and wreck houses and throw beer blasts for kicks, and get editorials in the paper for being a public disgrace one day and an asset to society the next. Greasers are almost like hoods. We steal things and drive old souped-up cars and hold up gas stations and have a gang fight once in a while. I don't mean I like to do things like that. Derry would kill me if I got into trouble with the police. Since Mom and Dad were killed in an auto wreck, the three of us get to stay together only as long as we behave." All right, guys, I'm going to stop there. Immediately, that makes me think about a conflict from our conflict notes. So, as you guys are reading and you notice a conflict, I want you guys to use your conflict notes as a constant reference to help you out to choose exactly which type of conflict whatever you just read fits. So, immediately when I was reading this section on page 3, it even said the word society in it. They aren't an asset to society because one day they're a public disgrace and one day the Socias, who even though they hold beer blasts, get editorials in the paper. So clearly here there's a difference between how people view Socias and the middle class rather than how they view the greasers. So I'm going to say this is an example of man versus society. When you guys find your example and you determine what type of conflict it is, I want you to go ahead. If you have Post-its, that's great. If not, I want you to write it on a scrap piece of paper so you can transfer it to a Post-it once you get back to language arts class. So, like I said, it's going to be man versus society. I want you guys to make sure you put the type of conflict on the top of the label or Post-it note. After you determine that, you're going to kind of briefly give me a description of what that conflict is. So here, I'm just going to say that people view the greasers as kind of less than, I would say. In comparison to the Socias. Even though the Socias do the same things that the greasers do. That's important to remember throughout our story. So once you give me a brief description, your next job is to give me a direct quote from our reading. This is our first time I'm going to be a stickler, guys, on how we cite things when it comes to our text. So let's remind ourselves of what the text actually said. We're poorer than the Socias and the middle class. I reckon we're wilder too. That right there tells me there is a big old difference between the greasers and these people. So I think that's a great quote to use to back up the fact that this is a conflict between man versus society. So what you guys are going to do underneath the description is put that direct quote. And again, it's going to be, "We're poorer than the Socias." And the middle class. I reckon we're wilder too. Alrighty, folks, after you put your direct quote, this is the most important part. From here on out, we must make sure we do this together every single time we use text evidence. So I want you to take a look. I have quotations at the beginning and end of my quote that I pulled. That is important. But another important thing is giving credit. These are not our words. These are not my words. These are our author's words. So when citing something directly from the text, you're going to remind yourself of your author. Our author here is going to be S.E. Hinton. When you go to cite, yes, you're telling us it was S.E. Hinton who wrote these words. You are never, ever, ever going to put the author's first name. Whenever you give credit to someone that you are using their words in a piece of writing of yours or in anything, all you need is simply their last name. So I'm going to go ahead and put Hinton. And then the second thing you got to check for is, if it's available, the page number where you found your information. So right after your author's last name, you plug in the page number. Notice I didn't put anything in between her last name or the page number. It's just her last name with a page number directly following. And then you're going to close those parentheses and add a period afterwards. That tells me Hinton was the one to write these words, not you, and this is exactly where you found your quote. Alrighty, guys. And that is it when it comes to our conflict tracking. So each time I ask you to go home and read, I want you guys to be sure you have your conflict reference ready to go, if that's something you're still struggling with remembering. And then it doesn't have to be on a Post-it, like I said. If you have them, great. You're going to make sure you list the conflict name. You give me a brief description of the actual conflict that's happening. And I want you to pull a direct quote that really, really backs up your point, that proves to me that this is indeed man versus society, or man versus man, whichever one your conflict example happens to be. Don't forget to always, always, always cite your direct quotes. Give credit where credit is due. If you ever forget, this will always be here for reference as well. And I'm sure you'll hear me say it 1,000 times in class. Alrighty, guys, your job, don't forget, is to start mapping your own conflicts. For now, I want you guys to see if you can find the second conflict from chapter 1. Since this is our first time I'm letting you find one on your own, I found the first one for you. I want you to come back to class ready with a conflict from page 5. Remember, you're going to identify the type of conflict, explain it to me, and give me a direct quote. Just for chapter 1. If I ask you to map more conflicts for different chapters, say chapter 2, if you read it at home, make sure you come ready to bring me those examples as well. If you ever need help, if you're struggling finding the conflicts on what pages, I'll be happy to give you little hints. Let me know.